I want to hear the sad news. Penguin Zero has the sad news for freaking Bloodborne. Let me hear it. I want to see if this is the full entire thing. I gotta hear it
What
here.
if I told you Santa Claus was on his way to your house, old Saint Nick wiggling down your chimney to deliver to you the thing you've always wanted?
Bloodborne.
But en route, on his way to your residence, he was gunned down, murdered in cold blood, and your dream gift stolen. That's exactly what I'm telling you. It literally happened. A Bloodborne remake was taken from us. In early 2025, it's reported that Bluepoint pitched a Bloodborne remake. They were pregnant with Bloodborne, and then they were punched in the stomach, killing it before it ever even had a chance. This news just broke in light of Bluepoint's closure. It's been announced that Bluepoint is shutting down, which is an absolute fucking shame because I thought they were making bangers. They most notably made the Demon Souls remake, which I thought was incredible. I recently replayed it and I think it's an amazing game. And they also made the Shadow of the Colossus remake. And now they have been put in the dirt. The reason for their shutdown is because Sony seemingly lost faith in them. They thought they couldn't make their own game, didn't have the gall for it, and they just couldn't find a partnership that made sense. Which I think is a fascinating take, considering this is the same company that was more than willing to queef out hundreds of millions of dollars shoveled into Concord, of all things. So you're telling me they believed more in Concord, the live service hero farter, than Bluepoint, with a proven track record of making good remakes, and having the facilities to make good games? Super confused.
Apparently, okay, so there was like a video or so, right? Of the reason that like there were some people that didn't like the what is it, the Demon Souls remake because it's like an artistic nightmare or like they had too much creativity or something like that. I'm not too sure. So okay, so there's like I don't know what's true and what's false or anything like that. So this is what I've heard, okay? So apparently that like I guess like Bluepoint kind of fucked up a little bit on Demon Souls on its remake and everything because it kind of like it was like something about too much artistic freedom with it, and then I guess they kind of fucked it up or something, and that's the reason why FromSoft doesn't want Bluepoint to do their remake because they're gonna fuck it up in some sort of way or so. I'm not sure how true that is. That's what I've heard at least. Don't take it from me specifically, but this is like what I've heard of why the reason why we never got a Bloodborne remake to begin with is because FromSoft doesn't want to let anyone else do it. So basically the remake is not one-to-one with the OG. Yeah, basically it's basically like that. So that's why FromSoft doesn't want to do it, because the problem is Miyazaki wants to be the one on hand to do it. But the weird thing about it is that Miyazaki was a-okay to do a remake for Bloodborne, but then like wasn't a like because like he was okay to do it, like he was on board to do it. But then, like, I honestly have no idea what the fuck is happening, to be frankly honest, behind the scenes. But this is basically is all I've been hearing. Like, this is all I've been hearing specifically is it's what's been happening. Like, this is the information I got provided for.
Especially when you consider Bluepoint was one of the few studios that was actually able to put out a high-quality game exclusive to the PlayStation 5 that made it enticing for people to even want to purchase the console in the first place. For me, Demon Souls Remake was a system seller, and there are very few games that PlayStation 5 even really had throughout its run here. PlayStation 5 is going to finish this console generation with less games on it than the fucking Shrek 2 DVD had in its main menu. So one of the few studios that proved that it was able to actually make a good game now no longer exists. In all fairness, I will admit that the title Bluepoint was cooking for the last X amount of years sounded fucking abominable. It sounds like such a bad joke. It was a live service God of War spin-off adventure.
Wait, so as previously reported, Bluepoint was working on a live service spin-off game of Santa Monica Studios' God of War series, which recently got the side-scroller treatment in the God of War Sons. Okay, so yeah, because I said specifically, right, that there was a God of War, because there was a God of War game that said that it got canceled or whatever or something like that, right? I thought it was this one specifically, but I guess it got the side scroller treatment. So that's basically is what I was saying, For me personally, a remake should not be a one-to-one with the OG.
Ow, good.
But there's some people who want that, that's basically the one-to-one remake, basically.
God, so that was a really bad project for Bluepoint to be undertaking. It was canceled by PlayStation in January of 2025, which is then right after when Bluepoint pitched the BloodBorne remake. And I will say that a live service God of War game sounds like a Sony decision that they tasked Bluepoint with.
It was. It was a Sony decision, if I remember correctly. I think I heard that it was a Sony decision that made Bluepoint made the live service thing, or well, actually, no. Well, the thing is, is like that Bluepoint wanted to do the remake for the Bloodborne, but then they denied it, and then they pitched in for the God of War live service game, and then Sony said yes. I think that's how the conversation went down specifically, if I remember correctly. I could totally be wrong, but it's somewhere in that sort of like kind of like nature reference there. So, but yeah, if it's a live service thing, it's from Sony 100% though. So, because remember, Sony was working on like 12 or 13 live service projects, and then half of them got shut down or canceled basically, and then we got a few of them that came out, which was Concord, and then it's Hunter's Gathering is one of them. This one other game, Fair Games or so, is another one that's being worked on, and then blah 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 blah. So
if it sounds like something that they took and said, Bluepoint, you're doing this. I don't think that was Bluepoint's main goal. I don't think they were salivating to create a live service God of War experience. I can't imagine Bluepoint was crawling on hands and knees, groveling and kissing the feet of Sony, begging them to allow them to make a live service God of War 100%. Spin-off game. That just seems like a Sony corporate zombie decision. Funny. And Sony publicly stated numerous times that one of their main focuses was live service experiences. So this really does seem like an idea, cooked up in the laboratory of Sony, and it's the exact same brain-dead approach that led to the foul, smelly Concord that only breathed for about 2 weeks. An embarrassing 2-week blunder. So this feels like it was a Sony decision, and then after the disaster of Concord, they probably wanted to pump the brakes a bit, so then they canceled the God of War live service game that they put with Bluepoint, and then when Bloodborne Remake pitch didn't make it across the finish line, then they didn't have a whole lot that they were working on, so they shut them down here a year later. And I also thought when reading this headline that it was Sony that poo-pooed on the idea, because Sony basically just says Bloodborne is our property to sit on and do nothing with, but it turns out that's not the case. So according to Bloomberg, Bluepoint was told that the numbers made sense to remake Bloodborne, but FromSoft didn't want it to happen. So it wasn't Sony that put the kibosh on it or anything. It was actually FromSoft. Former PlayStation executive Shuhei Yoshida theorized during a Kinda Funny interview last year that FromSoft president Miyazaki, who directed Bloodborne, was interested in remaking the 2015 action game himself, but was too busy to do so. Yoshida said he doesn't want anyone else to touch it. And if that's true, he believes PlayStation will respect Miyazaki's wishes, even though PlayStation owns the IP. Now, I understand, and I think most people have understood, that Bloodborne is a very special title for Miyazaki and FromSoft, but I think most people have also heard about how much they've wanted to do with Bloodborne, and multiple times in the past they've reiterated that that's not their decision to make. So the impression was, for the last decade, Sony was the one predominantly making the decision to keep Bloodborne in the toy box under lock and key.
Someone must be lying. Somebody has to be lying.
Letting the dust gather.
I feel like somebody's
and
lying
that
in
they
this.
were just squatting on it, either because they didn't believe that it was, a powerhouse of an IP that they actually want to do something with.
I think, okay, this is my theory. I think Sony wanted to do it though, right? But I think Miyazaki, the chart, I bet you they were charging or so for Miyazaki to do it, right? Was an obscene amount. So I think Sony refused it, right? And then I guess I assume, Bluepoint tried to pitch in specifically, but then Miyazaki understood that specifically that no one can do that specific title but him. So basically, Bloodborne is forever in limbo. Yeah, Bloodborne is definitely in limbo. It has to do. It has to be money wise. It has to be something about business specifically, like how much it cost or so for them to basically, pay for the remake specific to ask Miyazaki, hey, can you remake this game? We'll pay us this much.
or whatever. But it
I'm
seems like
curious if
there
that's what it
also
is, somewhere
is
around
the
that
case of
ballpark.
FromSoft just not wanting anyone else to work on it, but they themselves are too busy to do so. Which is understandable, but they did allow Bluepoint to remake Demon's Souls. So then I got wondering, well, were they just disappointed with how they handled that remake? Like maybe they thought that shit was poop and they didn't enjoy it, they weren't a fan, so they didn't want Bluepoint to touch Bloodborne, which is an extremely special title to them. So I went
Yeah.
looking for like some old interviews, and the most I can find is this. It's an Edge magazine interview with Miyazaki talking about Demon's Souls remake, and one of the things that was a big topic was how impressive visually Demon's Souls remake looked, talking about the graphical fidelity, and Miyazaki even said like that actually added
Maybe
pressure
Sony
to them with Elden Ring
pervert
because
Bloodborne and make it
Bluepoint's
into a
Demon's
live
Souls remake
service.
looked so
It's
good.
more like Sony wanted to do it themselves and get the whole cake. That's what I'm thinking. That's what also another thing that I was thinking too as well. I was like, they probably like didn't want to pay, but probably like they probably got the charging amount of how much Miyazaki wanted to pay or what percentage or so, right? That they wanted specifically for the game to sold. But then Sony said, no, we want the full entire thing, because their greediness in general, they're like, nah, fuck that shit.
And when
I think they
talking about
pussied out,
the
I
remake,
think that's what
it's
it is.
mostly positive. Now, of course, obviously he's not going to come out and be like, oh man, that's the worst thing I've ever played in my life or anything. But what I read here sounds like someone that actually does appreciate the work that went into it. So he was asked about, what's it like to experience the re-release of a game you originally worked on over a decade ago but had no direct involvement in. And he said, point blank, I haven't played it, but it's because I don't enjoy playing games I've made in the past, brings up a lot of old emotions, memories, and gets a little bit overwhelming. So he hasn't played it, but then he says that he's very glad to see it get this fresh look, these brand new current gen graphics. He then goes on to praise some of the decisions they made, even outside of the visuals, in it, like with their mechanics. Like he goes on to give like a lot of flowers to how Bluepoint handled Demon's Souls remakes. So it seems like he and FromSoft were pleased with how they approached that one, though there are also like rumors out there that behind the scenes they were really disappointed. Trust me, bro, they were fucking fuming at the FromSoft headquarters with Bluepoint's Demon's Souls remake. It was insulting. They were actually about to march over there with sledgehammers and beat him to death because of how much they hated it. But I can't find any like official sources that confirm that. That's all just rumors and speculation.
Yeah,
what I can find, however, is them just openly saying like, yeah, it was actually like really impressive what they did. It doesn't seem like there's any animosity. It doesn't seem like they hated that or anything. But when Bluepoint pitched the idea for a Bloodborne remake, I guess they weren't interested there because Bloodborne means too much to them, and it's something I guess they directly want to be involved with.
That makes sense.
Which they wouldn't be if Bluepoint took it over.
I'd be curious if maybe they want to add more content to it, question mark. Instead of doing a full remake or so, maybe they want to add more stuff that was like cut content from the past, maybe, question mark. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of. If they want to be solely involved in it, my curiosity is maybe they wanted to add more to it instead of just giving it a facelift only,
because like with Demon's Souls remake, they weren't
That's what
involved
I'm curious
with that.
about.
And I guess Bloodborne just means way too much for them to want to do that. So even though they can't work on it themselves right now, that also means that they just don't want anyone to work on a video game for.
So then that means there is a potential that a Bloodborne can be remade. But the problem is it has to fit the schedule or so for FromSoft for them to make it, because at the moment they're making that other game right now for the Nintendo Switch. So I assume they were working on this a few years back, right? While they were also working on the Elden Ring too as well. So they were basically working on two projects at the same time. I can see why immediately they couldn't be able to fit the Bloodborne remake in that specific time frame for it.
Bloodborne in general, if it's not them. Which I can understand, it makes sense. However, that also means 11 years of no Bloodborne anything. This motherfucker is still 30 FPS. This bitch is still 30 FPS. There's no remake, no PC port, no nothing, no movement, no schmovement on Bloodborne for 11 years for something that is one of like the most beloved titles like in PlayStation's catalog these days. Like it's up there with some of the greats, and it's only one game right now. And I speculate it will be one game for many, many moons to come. I personally don't foresee any new Bloodborne games coming, right around the corner anytime soon. Maybe, deeper into the future, we might see like a Bloodborne 2 or Bloodborne port, but I don't think it's anytime soon. Anyway, just wanted to yap about this. I keep my finger on the pulse of
The only way they
anything
would bring back
Bloodborne related.
Bloodborne 1 if
Fingers
if
crossed
they're
that
actually
one day
working on a
we'll see
sequel.
more from this. It's one
That's
of
the
the
only
best
way.
games ever made. It's such a fucking shame that we still don't have more from it. Anyway, though, that's really about it. So yeah.
Oh, that's crazy though. That's kind of wild to see that. No Bloodborne remake anytime
I
soon,
told
to
you?
be honest. That's sad. I'd be curious to see what actually is happening behind the scenes or so with this. Like what was the transaction with this? What was the conversation with one another? All this other stuff, It definitely feels like it's Sony greed though at the end of the day. I just have a suspicious feeling. That's all I gotta say about that. So there you go. Go get a Switch 2 now. This guy. Anyways, we'll see what happens. We'll take a look at that new Sony game. I mean, the new Nintendo Souls-like game too as well. We aren't gonna play it though, but I'll take a look at the trailers and stuff like that. So, yeah, what a sad day. Sad day indeed. When in doubt, always blame Sony. Always blame Sony, for God's sakes. They keep making so much live service slop over there. So.